Sure.
Absolutely. Good to
All
go.
right, let's get it rolling. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, we are pleased to continue our recent trend of delivering world-class talent from, well, you guessed it, way across the globe. And you are in for a real treat today. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Most of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible along the way today. Also, please make sure that your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this series free. Thank you to First Horizon Bank, Bufkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Fairlane Hotel, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome back my good friend and Who Knew alum, Dick Wingate. Dick is principal at Dev Advisors, an entertainment and media consulting firm providing business development, strategic partnerships, content licensing, and label and artist relations. With more than 40 years' experience in the music industry, he has been at the intersection of music and tech from the very beginnings, with in-store interactive systems to earliest music download services to the first mobile streaming applications. A renowned senior record label exec before he went on to become a chief content officer at Liquid Audio, Dick played an integral role in their 1999 IPO and negotiated the tech industry's first digital distribution licenses for the major labels. As president, media development at Nellie Moser, he helped develop the first mobile applications for Warner Music, MTV, ABC TV, and many others. His senior positions in the record industry include SVP of Marketing at Arista Records, SVP A&R at Polygram Records, Director of Talent at Epic Records, and Product Manager Columbia Records, where he worked closely with Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, Peter Tosh, Amy Mann, Eddie Grant, Garland Jeffries, Pink Floyd, Sarah McLachlan, and many others. He started his career as music and program director at WBRU-FM in Providence, Rhode Island. Dick has been quoted in the New York Times, Time Magazine, USA Today, Billboard, the LA Times, and the Wall Street Journal, and has been granted lifetime membership at the Grammys. Welcome back, Dick. So glad you're here with us.
Great to be here. Thanks, Tom.
And joining Dick as today's featured guest all the way from Singapore is Hazel Savage. With 15 years experience in the industry, Hazel is a music tech lifer, guitarist, and CEO co-founder at Museo. She started her music tech journey as an early employee at Shazam and spent time understanding the pain points of the industry at Pandora, Universal, and HMV before launching Museo in 2018. Hazel travels the world speaking at conferences and educating catalog owners about the value of artificial intelligence, integration, and digital transformation in the music industry. As a female CEO in the heavily male-dominated industries of music and tech, she offers a breath of fresh air and insight with interesting and humorous anecdotes, as well as easy-to-follow explanation and digestible use cases of AI technology. Please welcome these two rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Take it away, Dick.
All right. Well, thanks for such wonderful introductions. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk to Hazel Savage, especially since it's now 1 a.m. Where she is, and she's it's like the middle of her day. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Um, I'm just getting started, and thank you so much for such a fantastic intro, Tom. That was some lovely words, and I often feel like, yeah, I've been in the industry 15 years. That's ages. But then Dick Wingate comes along, and he's got way more years experience. So it's always a pleasure to be interviewed by Dick Wingate, of course.
Well, thank you. So, Hazel, Tom outlined just at a very high level, some of the steps that you've taken along your journey, but I'd love for you to tell us a lot more about that journey, from musician through Shazam and Pandora and Universal and even back to HMV. Tell us about the path that's brought you to where you are. I think it's fascinating.
Sure thing. So I am a guitarist. I got my first guitar, a Fender Telecaster, when I was 13 years old. Luckily had a very supportive family who supported my wanting to learn an instrument. But I would say I'm not particularly good at playing the guitar. I've been playing now for over 20 years, which makes it sound like I should be absolutely phenomenal. But I think I plateaued very early as a musician. I kind of played for a few years, and then I didn't really get much better after that. Turns out I'm a little bit better at the industry side of things. But I was playing in bands from the age of 15 years old. I remember I did my first ever gig when I was 15, and it was at the Darlington Arts Centre, which is my hometown in the UK. It was £1.50, which is about $3 to get into the show. And because we were such a new band, we only had 5 songs, and 3 of them were covers. I think one of them was House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. So to kind of fill out the time, we just played the first and second song again at the end. That's how you fill a set when you're 15 years old. And so yeah, I always just loved music. Went to university to study politics because I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And that's when I started working at HMV. So it really started as just a kind of a Saturday and Sunday job, stacking shelves in the record store, all the CDs. But I kind of never imagined if I could go back to that Saturday, Sunday job, and you could tell me where I would be now, it would have sounded like insanity, but that's where I started.
Okay, so where from there?
Where from there? So I essentially, when I finished university, was like, okay, I got to pay rent. I got bills to pay. So I just went full time at the record store. I was a good worker, luckily, a hard worker. So they were more than happy to give me full-time hours. So I ended up working full-time at the record store HMV and got a transfer from my hometown to the flagship store in London. So if anyone's ever or lives in London and has been to the Oxford Street flagship HMV, that was where I used to work. And I worked there for a good few years. And the whole time thinking, if you want to work in music, which I did, there was nothing else I was interested in, nothing else I was passionate about. I was like, I figure I have to be in the big city. I have to be here so that I can at least apply for other jobs. And I often tell people that whilst I was working at HMV, I probably applied for about 150 roles in the music industry. I was applying for entry-level record label jobs. I was applying for artist management assistant roles. I was applying for, you name it, I was applying for that role. And I maybe got lucky one day in that I applied for a little known startup called Shazam, that at the time was just a UK startup, 25 staff. I was employee number 25. And when I sent my CV to those guys, it just so happened that the hiring manager had also previously worked at HMV. So apparently he saw my CV and went, oh, she'll be a laugh. She'll be good fun. Let's get her in for an interview. And so kind of from there, and then once you've had 1 or 2 gigs in the industry, it becomes a little bit easier to get another one.
So, Shazam was such an important technology company in the development of music, and music identification, and what is it you're actually doing at Shazam?
Yeah, so I had not such a super exciting role. At the time it was called digital music encoder, but what that basically meant was I was one of the people who made sure that all the music was on the system so that it could be tagged. So I made sure that we had all the new releases. I ended up being responsible for all of Asia and Southeast Asia, making sure we had all the Chinese, Japanese, and Southeast Asian content. That became my speciality. And just was part of the music team that, made sure that there was stuff in the product. But it was funny because I also said, and this goes back to just a little anecdote about working in a male dominated industry. I would often, when we were really small, we had a biz dev guy called Jason Keck. He's now got his own company. I think they do insurance products. And whenever I see him on LinkedIn, and he was like a sales guy. He was super flashy, and he always had like the biggest, flashiest watch you've ever seen, like full diamonds, and like a bright green diamondy watch, and then a bright green matching shirt. And that was like he was like a big flashy American guy. And but we were really good friends, and we'd go out drinking together, and we'd go to all the company events. And every time people met the two of us and he'd say, "Oh, we're from Shazam," people would always mistake him for a founder. And I would always get like mistaken for the cleaner or for the secretary or something like that. Nobody ever met me and went, "Oh, you must be one of the founders of Shazam." So I clearly need to get on the big watch game. That's my takeaway.
So then you went to Universal. How did that happen?
I did. I got headhunted by the team at Universal in Australia because at the time, anyone who'd worked for an app, a music app, was kind of rare. Like there wasn't that many of them that were successful. The first iteration of the iPhone was newly released. So there was a big incentive to get people with my background into the more mainstream label side of the industry. So they made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I moved to Australia, having never been there before in my life. But I was like, how bad can it be? Loads of people go to Australia. People go there on holiday all the time. I'm sure it's fine. So I just moved. They offered me a job. I moved straight on over, and then I worked for Universal for about 1.5 years, but I lived in Australia for about 5 years after that. So yeah, you just and the way I like to say that as well, and maybe this will be relevant for you, Tom, as a recruiter, but I was actually just cold called on LinkedIn about the job from a recruiter. Somebody just messaged me one line, and all it said is, "Would you ever work in Sydney?" And I was like, maybe. Why? And I was like, I could have so easily ignored that pretty terrible cold intro, to be honest. But I didn't, and I still to this day obsessively like reply and answer to everything. Like the guy at Rolls-Royce who's running an AI initiative that emailed me today. I'll read every single email and every single LinkedIn message. You never know what you might miss otherwise. That's my take.
So from there you went to Pandora, right?
Yeah. So after Universal, I kind of at that point was like, should I not work in the music industry anymore? It's a hard road. Because I was still relatively new to it, relatively low level. I'd done Shazam and Universal, but I still didn't have a ton of experience. So I thought maybe this is my time to get out, but I keep just getting pulled right back in. And likewise, again, another headhunter had seen my profile and said, Pandora want to open an office in Australia, New Zealand. You've got the perfect profile. And I turned down the interview twice because I was like, I don't want to get back into that gig. It's not for me. But they kind of lured me in because they'd hired quite a well-known CEO. And they were like, oh, well, you should just meet her at the very least. And then I was like, okay. And so, I go in going, I don't really want the job. And, I'm not looking to get into another gig like this, to walking out the industry going, oh, I've got to get this job. This sounds such an amazing opportunity. So yeah, again, back to always take the call and say yes to opportunities. So I was with Pandora for nearly 3 years in Australia, and then left again to take up a music tech role in Singapore.
That was with BandLab?
There was a very, very small startup in between that, I worked for a hot minute, so probably not even worth mentioning the high turnover of startups. But yeah, I would say my two core roles that I've had in Singapore were, I was working for BandLab. I was their head of marketing across all their brands, and then I left and I started Museo. So that's kind of what's made up the core of my time here in Singapore so far.
Great. Well, let's talk about Museo. So, what is the mission and the ethos behind Museo? Why did you start it?
Quite a few reasons why I started it. It kind of multiple things that were occurring to me, that I was thinking, that were reasons why I started the company. The most entertaining of those reasons is that I was cold called by a startup incubator called Entrepreneur First. They're based out of the UK, and they have this model where they take 100 what they call exceptional individuals, and they put you in a cohort with the other 100 exceptional people. And there are some people who know a lot about one particular domain, such as myself in music. There are deeply technical people like my co-founder and Museo's CTO, Aaron. And you find someone to work with and you workshop an idea. And when they cold called me about this, I was like, this doesn't even sound real. This sounds insane. I've never even heard of something like this. I didn't know anything about incubators. But they said to me, the guy that used to drum for James Brown is joining this cohort. And
that was like, enough to get you in, huh?
That was enough to get me in the door. I thought, worst case scenario, I get to meet this guy. So I was like, I would quite like to meet the guy that played drums for James Brown. And I did meet him. His name's Eric Hargrove. I've seen him play live. He is phenomenal. Probably one of the best drummers I've ever seen.
Well, he would have to be, because James Brown, he was so hard on his band members.
Oh, yeah. If 2 mistakes and you were thrown out. You're out the band. That's it. And your whole career. And so this guy is absolutely a phenomenal drummer and a lovely guy. So I was just absolutely delighted. And what I loved even more is it turns out I have actually seen him play with James Brown, because when James Brown toured, and I ended up talking to Eric about this, James Brown toured in the UK. It was supposed to be a double headliner with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is strange in and of itself, that they were like, oh, Red Hot Chili Peppers, James Brown, perfect double headliner. But also, obviously, someone has to play first.
Right.
And so James Brown was on before the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is, again, questionable. But apparently I said I went to Cardiff Arena and I saw that show, and Eric was like, I was drumming in that show, and I was like, well, I've seen you and you're fantastic. So great, we go way back. Awesome. So that's kind of how they hooked me in to the startup incubator. But I suppose the reality of how did I actually come up with the idea for the business? How did I, you don't meet James Brown's drummer 1 minute, the next minute you've got an AI company, although the idea is to make it look easy. But it was really based on, when I had been working at my previous job, BandLab, the idea, and also HMV, and almost every job I've worked for, I often tell people, for those from the UK who are old enough to remember, music used to be released at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. And I know, because I put those CD singles on the shelf on Sunday night, ready for sale. And your average week, you were talking maybe five CD singles, maybe all the way up to 10 if it was leading up to trying to get the Christmas #1. And that was it. That was it for new music. And I mean, anyone could listen to 10 songs a week if they wanted to. That's a very manageable amount of music. But when you have streaming services these days like Spotify, Deezer, Apple, all saying, you know, we have 60,000 tracks uploaded a day, we now have more music being released every day than used to be released in a whole year. And so I've seen that firsthand, having worked for some of those streaming services, and then also being the person that put the CDs on the shelf. So I kind of spotted that this was happening, and wondered what the solution could be to that, because you know, nobody's manually listening to 60,000 songs a day. You couldn't even hire enough people to do it. So how do we know what we've got, and how do we know what to do with the music that's available? So it's kind of it's an end to end. It's every single job I've had in my career led up to me having the idea. But then even more pointedly, when I was at BandLab, you know, I ran the marketing team, but I had one music curator, and it was his job to put playlists together and then pin them to the homepage of our website. And the only way to do that was to just listen to as much music as you could that got uploaded. And he was great. He was really great at his job. He could do listen to 200 songs a day. Really effective. But if you're having 10,000 songs uploaded and you listen to 200, then you're not being effective in general. And he could go several days and not really find anything that was worth playlisting. And we just kind of went, oh, well, that's how it works. And I was like, there just simply has to be a better way. How could you pre-process all of this data? How could you break it down into its subsequent genres, the quality of the recording, find stuff that's just instrumental? There must be a better way to get this data that doesn't involve manually listening to every track. And so that was kind of the genesis of the idea as well, led in by James Brown Strummer.
Well, so the concept became, how do we use AI to listen to all this music and break it down into the various categories and filters, of which you'll tell us about, because there are many. So it's machine listening, as opposed to machine learning, which we've all heard about.
And that's it. And so it's, you know, there's a few different ways to talk about it, and depending on how music industry people are, depends on how I analyze it. You know, like I had a meeting with an investor today, and I said, look, I describe us as an AI company for the music industry, but what we really are is a data processing company. It just so happens that the data that we process is music, almost exclusively. And then, the concept of machine listening, this machine learning by machine listening, we do say we've taught an AI to listen to music, but computers don't even have theoretical ears. Really, it's all computer vision, and it's teaching an AI to recognize patterns. And those patterns happen to be from audio files. So it creates something that almost seems magical, like it has listened to the song. But really, it's a complex computer process that's replicating an impression of listening. And we've got a few great musicians and composers on our team, and one of them gave me a fantastic explanation, which I absolutely loved, which is, if we all imagine looking at a waveform, you know, you look at any standard waveform, you can kind of see where it fades in, you can see where it fades out, you can see where maybe even where the drop is, or where the verses and choruses are, it goes up and down. But what you can't tell by looking at a waveform is what genre that track is. It could be anything from classical to electronic. You cannot tell by looking at the waveform, and you can't tell if it has a vocal on it or whether it's instrumental. That information is just not in a waveform. So what we've done is we've almost gone from looking front on at the waveform to kind of going up and over and then looking down onto the waveform, where all of that information is kind of stacked. It's all stacked in there. You just need to teach the computer to be able to analyze those audio files. So yeah, that's what we specialize in. That's what we do.
So your first product was a tagging product, which is you know, being used by, you might want to talk about some of your clients, and there are some that you can't talk about, I know, and they happen to be very, very large global DSPs who don't want them.
Oh yeah.
They don't want everyone to know that she's behind the scenes on some of their music services, but you can talk about some of the ones that you are using and the tagging. Let's start with the tagging
Yeah.
product, which you could demo for us. I think it's really quite compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be more than happy to share my screen. If I know what I'm doing. I was like, oh, it's not giving me the option
Oh,
to.
Tom probably has to do that.
Well, it's giving me the option, but I was going to say everyone's going to see my horrific desktop, which actually isn't as embarrassing as it is usually. I was like, oh no, is everyone going to see I've got one of those insane desktops with like 500 documents on? But luckily, I must have cleaned it recently. But yeah, so what I'd like to do is just show everyone the tagging demo really quickly, because I feel like the best way to understand AI, the best way to understand what I'm talking about in terms of music tagging is to see it in action. So I've just gone to my own website, musio.com, and you can just click this button here, try tag demo. And what you can actually do is we've built this little widget here. So you can drop in any YouTube link, any SoundCloud link. If you have an MP3 on your desktop, it could be even your own music or something unreleased. We don't ever need to have seen it before, and we can still tag it. I'm just going to click demo track for this call. And what we're doing here is we're taking this YouTube link, we're taking the audio from it, we're turning it into those spectrograms, those very detailed waveforms I was talking about. And then the computer will look at the data and then generate these tags based on what it sees. So this is kind of the artist and title here, this Billie Eilish, Everything I Wanted. The artist and title is taken from the metadata. Everything else here is AI generated. So we can tell you whether content is music or not. We can also tell you if it's a sound effect, a drone, a spoken word, ambient noise. We break down a lot of different audio types of content, but this is music, and a lot of our clients are in the commercial music space. We've got genres, so indie-tronica and indie music. The percentage is how confident the AI is that tag is correct. So that's not like a genetic makeup, luckily, because it doesn't add up to 100, but it's instead a confidence score. And what that allows our customers to do, and a couple of examples of our customers who use this exact technology, Epidemic Sound are a customer, Jamendo are a customer, Click and Clear are a customer. Anyone with a large catalog of music where this data either doesn't come as a default or they want to use it to power their search, that's a great reason why somebody might work with us. But one of our customers might say, you know what, don't show anything under 50%. We don't like it needs to be super confident. So in which case you would drop this second tag and you would just get indie-tronica. And that's entirely up to the customer. So energy spectrum, we've got moods, we've got emotions, we've got instruments, and then everything here in bold is also a tag, but we've turned it into a sentence to kind of show people what's possible. So that there's a high presence of vocal as opposed to instrumental. It's a female vocal. It's a high quality recording, so referring to the audio quality. It's an F sharp minor, and it's 120 beats per minute. And it doesn't vary much across the life of the track, so small variants. And then we've got this kind of use case, add it to a party playlist, add it to a video log, recommendation, influencers playlist. So we're able to really generate anywhere between 10 and 20 pieces of very consistent metadata for most music that's available. It's language agnostic, so it works on any language. It works on music we've never seen before. We're not pulling these genres from Spotify's API or YouTube's. It's all from the actual audio file itself. So we work well on production music. We work well on user-generated content. And as I say, I often say it's not super difficult to tag one track. If you played me this Billie Eilish song, I could probably tag it for you manually myself, and you give me 5-10 minutes. But where our customers usually use our product is in high volume. So if you have a large catalog, if you have 50,000 songs you need to tag in one day, if you have 60,000 new songs on your platform a day, if you have a back catalog of 50 million tracks, that's where it becomes really powerful. And especially now as catalogs are changing hands and moving around, quite often metadata is something that gets left behind. And we work with a really large production music catalog who've got around 2 million tracks, but it's made up of a sort of a small core of very well tagged audio that was done manually. Some new catalogs they've acquired that came with absolutely no data attached, and then some where that old thing in our industry where at one point people said, the more tags you can add, the better. So people would go, great, hip hop, classical, pop, dance, metal. They just add everything. And then that data is just complete nonsense and useless. So then when you have a catalog of 2 million tracks and there's everything from 50 genre tags to some that have no tags at all, Museo can offer you a really quick, really instant, high level of data across the whole catalog. So that's what a lot of our partners work with us on. And as I say, it was a great one for Epidemic Sound. They had a large back catalog, tens of thousands of tracks, and they had actually gone through and manually tagged all of their tracks with one genre. And then I think maybe the BPM, there was something like they'd added two tags. But they realized that, if they said something was pop and someone else has searched indie pop, then that track's not going to show up, even if it would be a good fit. So they were like, how do we just get more? How do we get more breadth and depth of tags? And we can add anywhere between 1 and 4 genres per track. So it just powers your search engine. It gives you more to search and more flexibility. So that was great. That was great to work with a client like Epidemic Sound, who have treated their catalog with a lot of respect. They had gone and tagged it, but they don't want to go back and redo the whole thing. That's not great use of people's time. So yeah, that's music tagging. And by all means, absolutely anyone on this call, if you head to our website, you can try the demo for free. And I highly encourage it, especially if people usually do one of two things. They'll throw me a softball or they'll try and break it. They'll try and drop in some like Mongolian throat singing. And I'm like, we don't have that as a standalone genre. So we'll see.
So the next thing I think that you'd like to demo and we'd like to see is how it's being used for search, especially for music supervisors and ad agencies and creative agencies, etc.
Yeah, so we're working with a lot of very interesting companies on the search technology, and so this is our product as well. And we do have, again, we have a free demo here for search. I'm actually going to log into my test catalog because I think it's a slightly more interesting use case to see it. This is my personal test catalog, 6,500 MP3s that I personally own, dropped into a catalog so I can show people how it works. So nobody on the call judge me for my music taste. Ideally, we got a lot of good stuff in here. We got some Cool in the Gang, we got some Prince, but I am also known for my classic rock stylings. So you'll probably see some quite embarrassing stuff in here too. But what I want to show you is, so you've got this 6,500 track database, the ability to, and I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm just going to grab the URL for Cardi B's Bodak Yellow. I'm a big hip hop fan as well. And the ability to copy and paste that YouTube link into this search bar. But instead of getting tags back as the result, like we did in the first demo, we fingerprint the track with the same technology. But then instead of returning tags, we compare that fingerprint to every other fingerprint in the catalog, and we tell you which is most similar. So it's searching audio using other audio. It's kind of like a Google image reverse search for music. So you can see here, we've gone from 6,500 to 449 matches. You can see it found itself first. So Cardi B's Bodak Yellow, but the clean version. I dropped in the original from YouTube. But what if we wanted to whittle that down further? What does it look like if I narrow the BPM? I have more specific requirements. Okay, so maybe that's too narrow. So what does it do when I make it between 136 and 180? Okay, so now we're down to 142 matches. And you would think maybe if a music supervisor or a sync placement, the reference track they've been given is Cardi B, chances are they probably also want a female vocalist. So what happens if I get rid of all standalone male vocals. So now we're down to 9 matches. And so just the idea that you can go from 6,500 songs to 9 in the couple of seconds that we've been talking. And, we've got some Nicki, Iggy, Beyonce, stuff that feels like a good fit. And then we send them to our music supervisor, or we add them to a playlist. But just the ability to jump around within a catalog, and maybe I go, oh, you know what, Bees in the Trap, Nicki Minaj, it's a bit heavier, but it's in our catalog, and I think this would be a great fit. What happens when I click find similar on that track? So that jumps to being the seed track, and now I have a whole bunch of other much heavier, much grittier sounding hip hop with a sparser instrumentation. So the ability to find audio using other audio, which now that we're working with a lot of music companies and a lot of production companies where their databases are in the millions, and nobody can remember that many songs. And if you don't know what you have, and you don't know how to search it efficiently, how can you maximize that asset? And I think that's what it's all about now in our industry. It's like, if you own the catalog, you own this music, you have the asset. How do you maximize the revenue on it? And if you can't find it, or you don't know you have it, then that becomes harder to pitch.
Yeah, this is really exciting, and it leads to the next product that I wanted to ask you about that you've launched recently. That's getting a lot of attention because it's very timely. And that is using your AI to identify the best 30-second song segments of songs for short form video use, like TikTok, where the actual segment is critical to success. And you told me that this was born out of analyzing several years worth of TikTok hit video data, analyzing the most popular videos.
Yeah.
And so, tell us about that.
So that's it. To train an AI on anything, you just need what we call in the industry a data set. So if you want to train an AI, and a great example is we did a pilot with a Chinese streaming service, and they wanted to know, can you teach the AI to tell the difference between songs that are sung in Mandarin and songs that are sung in English? And I was like, sure. If the human ear can hear it, if you can listen to a song, and I don't speak Mandarin, but I can tell if a song is in Mandarin or English, then you're just teaching the AI to find the same patterns. So what we did in that pilot was we gave the AI 5,000 songs in English and 5,000 in Mandarin. And we said, this is what English looks like. This is what Mandarin looks like. And then after 2 weeks of this repetitive training, you show it something new. And with about 97% accuracy, it can tell you whether that song is in English or Mandarin. So it's the same again. If you know what's successful on TikTok, you have groupings of songs that are used for TikTok dances. You have grouping of songs that hit their charts, that go viral. And so again, it's about getting those groups of data together, telling the AI that this is what we're looking for, and then asking it to find it again. So we came up with this product that's very much, using, again, the same fingerprint, because we're able to look at the whole audio file. And if you want to know which the best 30 seconds or 45 seconds are, you just ask the AI to pick it. And so that's been really popular with the labels, because again, back to the idea that their catalog is their asset. If they've got a back catalog of tens of thousands of tracks, and they are, and they're not doing anything with it because no one wants to sit and manually find the best 30 seconds of every song, because not everyone's going to be a winner. But if we can automate that, then that's something that's very powerful that people are interested in. It's about ideally not leaving money on the table.
And you've trained it to ensure that it comes right in on the beat, and there's no chance that it's going to break in the middle of a word or anything like that.
Completely. And I have to, you've been on calls with me, Dick, when I've pitched the TikTok segments back to the company that have been doing the test or the work or the pilot with us. And I have to kind of stop and remind them, oh, this is AI, an AI picked this section, because it's almost too good. Like, and sometimes I forget because it just sounds like somebody picked like right at the start of a drop, right at the start of a bar, perfect couple of beats lead in, boom, straight into a chorus. Like, it's almost flawless. It's really magic, and it's one of the products I'm most excited about as well. It's and I love to pitch that to people as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know, one of the things that you've been dabbling with that I'd like to bring up now is that competitions, you know, songwriting and having AI as a judge.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, very interesting. And I've got a couple of things that come to mind because I had another customer call about this today. So you're right on the cutting edge, as always, Dick Wingate. But essentially, what we decided to do is we have the ability to process this enormous amount of data. And so as an experiment, it's not something we've ever done before. We sort of consider ourselves a tech company first. We're not a record label. We're not a streaming service, but we do have this amazing ability to analyze music. So we thought, what if we got people to just submit their original material, their home produced beats, their music to us, and then almost we would run the whole thing through the AI. And then the prize would be, you know, for the ones that the AI picks as, you know, best for TikTok or top track, we would then do like a second by second data analysis and then present that back in a workshop as part of the prize. It's kind of interesting. I don't know how popular it's going to be. I mean, we just kind of came up with the idea a few weeks ago, and that is one of the best things about being a startup. You can just have an idea and go, yeah, let's do it. Let's see if this is something people are interested in. You know, if I feel like if it's something people were very interested in, we would make it a regular event. You know, do people want to, you know, kind of create more opportunities for artists, which is something I'm very passionate about as well. And or maybe it's not so sexy and exciting for people to get loads of data and buy an AI and look at it. But yeah, fascinating as well, because we have run A&R competitions with some of the majors before, and right. Yeah, one of them hit me up again today to say, we did it for 2020, let's do it 2021. So you know, because the AI can pass through tens of thousands of applicants in a songwriting competition, and
so that you use it to sort of narrow it to a smaller field that then they can listen to manually. Is that how it works?
Exactly. And where it's interesting, obviously I am a big believer in AI technology, but I know it can be something that's a little bit more, not everyone's as comfortable with the idea of AI within an A&R application. But my take was always, you know, when I've spoken to people, say one of the majors runs a songwriting competition and they get even 10,000 entrants, they will not listen to all of those entrants. It's just too many. They don't have the bandwidth. They don't have the time. At least with AI, everything will get processed and the best stuff will get shortlisted. So I hope it provides more opportunities for people who are not relying on, oh, I have a friend who works there, so I've given him a nudge and he'll put us at the top of the pile. Right. I'm hoping it means that people will get opportunities regardless of where they're from, because if it's good audio, the AI will find it. So that's kind of the objective we're working on, and it seems to be quite popular because it opens up the industry to higher volume.
So I see a question in the chat, which is, what is the business model for the company?
Great question. Now I feel like I'm on an investor call. Just kidding, Dominic. What is the business model? So it depends. It depends which product people want, and it depends how much tech they need us to do for them. So with the two products I demoed, tagging and search, tagging, we just charge a one-off. It's pretty much 7 cents USD per track. Once we've tagged that song for you, we consider that data to be yours. So say you only have 1,000 tracks in your entire catalog, you could tag them all using our code-free solution, the 7 cents a track, and then never have to pay us anything again, unless you wanted to come back and update and get some new data. Search is a bit more complicated, because to be able to serve search results, we need to search the fingerprint against all of the other fingerprints. So we need to store a copy for search. And that means we do have a smaller per track price, so that we can host the catalog for you to be able to get search results returned. But we work with everyone. We work with everyone from the biggest DSPs to record labels, small independent record labels that are just, solo owned, a couple of 100 tracks. And so we've got a pricing model that works for everyone, we hope.
Is there a website that you can that is using your technology, that besides the demo on your site, one of your clients, that people can really go and take advantage of it?
Absolutely. Let me just drop it in the chat. So one of our good friends, the Australian music service Melody, so they've got a catalogue of about 14,000 songs. And when you go onto their website and you try their search, that's Musio search. So, the ability to drop in a YouTube link, the ability to, click find similar on any track, that's all powered by Musio. So yes, you can see it in action on Melody's website. They have a developer that built that integration. But the one that I showed you, where I had my test account, if you don't have developers, you can just use the Musio branded solution. And if it's just for internal use for your team, or you could pay us if you wanted us to rebrand it and have it be a public facing website. There's a high level of customization that we can offer.
You mentioned very briefly investors. As a female tech founder, what's it been like raising money and working with investors, navigating the music industry from that viewpoint? Surprisingly good.
I have to say, Musio is the first ever company I've founded, so I don't have a massive frame of reference. Because it's the first time I started a company, it's the first time I've raised money. Pretty much everything I do, I'm doing it for the first time. I'll be like, yeah, I've never done this before, but I figure I could just figure it out as I do it. So we raised our seed investment round of about 1.5 million in 2019, and we did that through very traditional VCs. So our lead investors, a company called Wavemaker Partners. They're based in Singapore and LA. And it was funny because they were like, we don't know anything about the music industry. We've never invested in a music company. We don't know anything about it. But we really like your team and your idea. As long as you're okay with us just writing you a check and leaving you alone. And I was like, that sounds ideal. Because unless you've got sort of Dick Wingate level contacts in your back pocket, you're best off leaving it to someone else. So yeah, they've obviously financially funded the business. It's quite expensive to run an AI company. You need a lot of tech, you need a lot of developers. But yeah, it's going well so far.
I want to take another question that's in the chat, and it is how should the AI work in conjunction with crowdsourced big data?
Another great question from Dominic. Essentially, that's kind of what we do when we end up partnering with someone. So a lot of the streaming services that we work with, or a lot of the music companies, they have that data themselves. Like, part of what they have is that part of it, which is in, a streaming service, for example, we have one streaming service customer that's a telco in a Southeast Asian country. They already, and their streaming service is part of their telco bundle. So they already know where people live, what gender they are, what age they are. They already have their credit card details. They know their spending habits. They have all that data. We don't have that. But what we have is this very unique ability to analyze the audio files. So what we often do is, here's the thing we do, and we do it very well, and we do it hopefully better than anyone else. And then we work with them to help them, like with privacy in place, layer that data in, because actually together it's even more powerful. But we don't go about the business of collecting that data for ourselves, because usually when we show up and we do a deal with a company, that's the thing they already have. And as I say, neither is as powerful on its own, but then together, especially in a playlisting capacity, it can be really powerful. So then the ability to edit the product and then do like a custom integration so that they can manage all of these data feeds, that's also something that we offer and that we do quite a lot.
I want to broaden it a little bit now and talk about other uses of AI for music. One which also does is taking the actual sound recording and breaking it apart, into stems, or
Yep.
Sound source separation, as it's known in a more generic terms.
Mm-hmm.
This is becoming better and better. I've been involved with one of the companies that has been in that an early mover in that space, called Stemit, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Is that something that you might actually want to pursue as another line of business?
Yeah, possibly. I'm really interested in source separation technology as well, and as is my co-founder. And it's definitely hugely improved over the last 5 years. My question always is, because quite often when I get on a call with a potential customer, they might have this question, or they might have another question in mind, and it's usually kind of right at the edge of what the tech is capable of. And so what is interesting with source separation is, I always say, it depends what you want to do with the stems after you've separated them, because most of the examples in the last few years they degrade the file to an extent once they're separated, so that if you were to reassemble them, you would have the same track, but it would sound much, much lower quality. And so perhaps if it's in a professional production or remix environment, that loss of audio quality is unacceptable. That's just not good enough for commercial release. But for something like Musio, if you separate out the stems, and then all you need to do is tag it to be able to say, oh, it's this instrument, or it's a vocal, then maybe that's good enough. So every time a new iteration of the source separation technology comes out, we like to test it. But what we're always what we're always comparing against is, at the minute, our AI seems to be able to identify all those things, such as the instruments and the genre, just as well when the track is fully compiled as when it's separated. Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't yet add that extra step in. But, at some point, it may well become slicker and easier, and the accuracy's higher, and then we'll pivot and we'll be straight off down the old source separation route. So, yeah, part of being a tech company, a music tech company, is trying to keep an eye on all these trends as well.
Well, it seems like the best use case for it, today, or up till this point, companies like Audionamics are in this space, is to create instrumental versions of songs where they pull out the vocal, or the opposite, vocal only.
Yeah.
So for instance, for a music supervisor who likes the song but is imagining it without a vocal, and it's a quick and easy way to hear what that would sound like. And then if it's not good enough quality, then they can pay for the.
If they really want it, they can get a re-record. Yeah.
Also, a lot of old recordings, the multi-tracks are they just can't be located, or in some cases they've been damaged. And of course, everyone knows about the Universal, the fire which occurred years ago, and in one of the Universal studio lots, that some of the masters were damaged, and they only have safeties, if anything. So that's just an interesting thing. I thought it's worth discussing, because I see that moving along, and now they can pull out bass and drums to some extent, and it is.
And then And then the other thing I get asked for all the time, where I have to tell people it's just too difficult right now, is to use the source separation to be able to pull the vocal out and then use voice to text to be able to auto transcribe the lyrics of any song. Now, I asked my co-founder about this, and he reckons, given 2 years, he could probably build it. And I reckon he probably could, because he's a genius like that. But the challenge is, as opposed to voice to text, like when you do a Siri or you do a Google Home, spoken word is much more predictable than sung, because there's so many ways that you can sing any individual word, how long you stretch out the word for, or how quickly you put them together, that trying to build a data set that represents the thousands of ways each individual word could be said and then stuck next to other words, the level of data at the minute is just astronomical, to the point where it would cost so much to try. And the likelihood of success would be so low that usually I just tell people, like, do you want us to just give Lyric Find a call? Because they've already got it. Like, they, at the minute, and that's what I try and do as well. I do say to people, like, AI is not always the best solution. At some point, it's more expensive. At some point, it may not even be as accurate. And so, honestly, sometimes if there's a better way, like doing a deal with a lyric company for a couple of cents per lyric file, that's technically a better way to go. And AI is better for the stuff that can't be done that way. But yeah, I'd be fascinated. I think here's my prediction: in the next 5 to 10 years, a sing to text AI music company, I think someone will build it. That's my prediction.
Well, that's probably a good lead into the sort of the hottest AI question of the moment, which is, generative AI, meaning AI to actually compose the music versus descriptive AI, which I guess we could call what you're offering.
Yeah.
There are already companies out there that are, like Boomi, that offer AI that allows you to create songs, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel bad sometimes answering this question, because I feel like I have quite a particular take on it, and I'm sure there'll be lots of lovely people on the calls who might disagree with me. But generally speaking, I'm pretty anti AI written music. And I think that's because, and I've kind of distilled why my opinion is that I don't love it. And it's because when I think about where I think AI adds the most value, and especially when it comes to talking about my company, and even though we're 3 years old, the way people thought about AI 3 years ago, which was almost a 100% slam the phone down when I told them what we did, to maybe we're interested kind of approach that we get in 2021, is AI works best when it does something super repetitive that nobody wants to do, aka tagging music, or it does something at the scale that's not humanly possible to do, aka searching 2 million tracks in 2 seconds. And that's where AI can be the fantastic assistant to our industry that I think it works really well as. And I just feel very deeply that the process of writing music does not fit that definition. And I say that as someone who, when I got my first guitar at 13 and I started writing music, like, nobody paid me. I don't know that I ever made any money from actually playing. And I used to write my own songs, but, kids all over the world right now sat in their bedrooms, playing instruments, writing music. And it's not something that needs to be outsourced to a machine, because there's no lack of people that love to do it. Whereas I feel like the tasks we try and take on would fit that description more accurately. But I feel bad because there's so many, innovative AI tech companies, and I love tech people and I love founders, and I want them all to be successful. But I just personally, and especially as well when I talk to a lot of our clients in this space, people like Melody and Epidemic Sound have, no problem getting access to new content, 14,000 songs in Melody's database. So for me, it's like a bit of a supply and demand issue as well. But I know there are lots of very, very smart people who would disagree with me on that one.
Well, it's, I can understand, I come from the traditional, I mean, I did A&R and signed lots of acts, many, some of which were hit acts. And so I come from the old school of finding a great artist, hopefully an artist that writes their own songs. But I can understand in today's world where there's such an emphasis on beats, for better or for worse, that somebody might want to start with a set of some beats that they, especially if they're essentially a lyricist, and a songwriter, but not so much a composer. That might make sense. So I think there's room, especially for hybrid type situations. But
yeah, and as I say, as you're speaking then, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. And now I'm like, oh yeah, AI generated beats, people rapping over them. That's a great use case. So I also would like to sort of reserve the right to change my opinion at any time. They say that's how you're supposed to be, right? Like when you find new information, then you can change your opinion. So I'm willing to, I'm willing for them to broadcast this recording 100 years in the future and be like, how wrong was this person?
It'll be on
I
YouTube.
would not mind.
Right. Well, we've got a few minutes left for questions, and I'm seeing some comments from friends here in the chat here. I'm delighted to see Norm Weiner on here, the brilliant radio programmer, who I've known since the 70s when he was the music and then program director of WBCN in Boston, and then the longtime program director of WXRT in Chicago. And he wrote, "So heartening to hear her defending that righteous position." Which is
oh man, and they put me on panels with 3 people who do AI generated music for a living, because they know I'll sit there and be like, I'm not into it. So yeah, I get wheeled out as bizarrely, the CEO of the AI company gets wheeled out as the anti-AI music person occasionally. But yeah, it's great as well. I see my friend Brian Durant in the from Downtown Music has dialed in. Brian said he was going to dial in, so that's really good to see him in the chat. And also, Dominic, I'm going to answer your 3rd question, because you were like, final question. How would AI work with source data? We did that one. What does AI do when it finds music that it's never seen before? So this is interesting. Well, I think it's interesting. It depends how like wildly different the music is. So it could be a challenge. Something like Chinese classical music does not resonate on the same kind of mood spectrum that Western commercial music does. So it might be that, what sounds sad in Western commercial music we would tag as sad, but that's actually a very happy Chinese classical music song. So there are occasions when something needs to be rewritten or rebuilt for a certain market. But another way as well, like, as I say, Billie Eilish, when she got tagged with Indie-tronica and indie, and some other of her catalogs might also then end up with like a pop tag or a soul tag. Often the AI will see, if it's not a perfect match, it'll pick maybe 4 subgenres that it's seeing elements of blended together. So quite often that can be a solution for something the AI hasn't seen before as well. So, and thank you for so many questions, Dominic.
Good. Let's see. We have one more here. I think we'll take one more. It says you mentioned lyric. This is from Rose Hart. Hi, Rose. Thanks for joining us. You mentioned lyric generators. Is there a use application of your tech that surprised you?
Really good question. I don't think I've been asked that before. How I don't know that anything surprises me, but some of them I could put it on a scale of most surprising. one of the things that surprises me most is that the AI, we built a demo once of like live karaoke feedback. So because the AI can literally listen to you singing a song and tell you how close or far you are from the original, or how good or bad, or how on pitch or off pitch, or on beat or off beat. And we built that for a gaming company in Asia for a singing game that they had, and that was super fascinating. And I guess when I started the company, I didn't envisage that kind of use case. But as I say, it's almost unlimited, the amount of things you can do when you can process audio data this quickly. Oh my God. And a new crazy one, Rose, you just reminded me. I had a call last week from, and I might say no to this gig, to be honest. You know those robocallers where your phone rings and it's not a real person on the other end, it's a call center trying to get you on the phone, and then a real person picks it up. And someone messaged me and said they're having a problem that their robo-dialer will call someone and they'll get put on hold and music will play down the phone for like hours, and they want the robot to hang up so that they can continue to bother regular human beings. So they wanted to know, could our AI instantly identify when music is being played back to their robocalling spam bots so that they can more efficiently robocall people? And I kind of am interested because I bet they'd give me a lot of money, but I don't like robocalling, so we're probably not going to let them use the tech. I agree, Tom. But what an interesting use case. I'm always interested in people telling me this kind of stuff. I'm like, interesting. So yeah, that's two kind of slightly out there use cases, Rose, that come to mind.
I just a couple more shout outs before we wrap. I thank some of the folks that have joined, Jen Bird, and there was a times change for this event today, and I see at least one person who just came in thinking it was starting, and I'm sorry about that. Shout
Dick,
out.
you can blame that on me. Folks, I am terribly sorry on the scheduling glitch. That is 100% my fault.
But I think you recorded the session, right, Tom? So I guess if anyone wants to hear my many stories, mostly about James Brown and robocallers, it's all going to be available for replay. That's exciting.
That's right. We will post this to YouTube tonight.
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks for joining also, and shout out to Glenn Friedman and lots of friends here. Ty Braswell, my old buddy from Liquid Audio, Jerry Lembo, Hillel Frankel, so many. Thanks for joining, and thank you, Hazel, for telling us your fantastic story. You're an inspiration, I think, to a lot of people, including me. Whenever I speak to you, I'm always ended, and I finish them with, that was great. That was a great call. I think you just, you have an energy level and it's catching. I guess that's.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time.
Well, that's a good way to end. That's a good way to end. I'll pass it back to Tom and say thank you.
Well, let me say thank you to both of you. Dick, what a fascinating guest you brought today. Hazel, this has been riveting, and I'll echo his sentiments. Your personality is infectious, and your enthusiasm for your product is incredible, and obviously your product speaks for itself. So kudos to you, and carry on and say hell no to that robocall use case. We'll start a GoFundMe to take up the revenue that you would have made for that. Just to
don't worry, it wasn't a hard choice.
Yeah, but do follow up on the Rolls-Royce call and see what they want.
Yeah, well, you got to keep saying yes to all those unknown emails, right? Keep answering them all.
Well, to the audience, thank you. And again, I apologize for the scheduling glitch today. And I want to encourage you to keep coming back. On this Thursday, we're going to have a session that is oddly similar to this one. We are featuring the entire cohort of the current class of Project Music's music tech companies. There are 14 entrepreneurs like Hazel who will be giving about a 2 to 3 minute pitch on their wares. And I can promise you, just like Hazel's company has blown up over the last few years, there's going to be a few of these companies that also blow up. So please tune in. And that time is unequivocally 2 p.m. Eastern. There will not be a scheduling glitch on that. And with that, I simply want to sign off with my normal, and that is be nice to each other and get a damn shot now. See you, folks.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers.